Good morning, students. Before we proceed for the discussion of our lesson entitled Hyperbola of Conic Section, let's begin first with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good morning, student. How are you today? I think you're okay for this morning. As your facilitator of learning, it is my goal to give you an amazing learning experience. To achieve it, your cooperation is greatly needed by obeying the following rules. First, using of gadgets is strictly prohibited unless I allowed it. In case of emergency, just ask properly. Second, any form of bullying is also strictly prohibited. Third, avoid being naughty. As you enter this classroom, each one of you has an automatic 5 points that will be credited in your class participation. A violation of any of these rules will result to a 1-point deduction from your 5-point credit. In case of answering and asking a question, just raise your hand. Is everything clear? Okay, so let's proceed. So before that, I think others are not ready for our lesson. So everyone give me 1 clap, 2 claps, and 3 claps. So okay, so let's proceed for the discussion. The content standard of our lesson, Hyperbola of a Conic Section, the learner demonstrate an understanding of the key concepts of conic sections and systems of nonlinear equation. So this content standard can be found in the curriculum guide of the K-12. As well as the performance standard, the learner shall be able to model situations appropriately and solve problems accurately using conic sections and systems of nonlinear equation. So same as the content standard, under this performance standard, we're only dealing with a conic section in terms of hyperbola. So our learning competency for this morning is define a hyperbola. What is a hyperbola? So the learning objectives, aside from defining a hyperbola, we are also to analyze the hyperbola. So we have 2 learning competency. Defining a hyperbola and analyzing a hyperbola. So let's proceed. Just like ellipse, one of the conic section aside from hyperbola is the ellipse, also a parabola. A hyperbola is one of the conic section that most students have not encountered formally before. So ibig sabihin, hindi pa talaga alam ng mga student kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng hyperbola. Kahit grade 10 ay hindi po ito na-discuss. Hyperbola, its graph consists of 2 unbounded branches which extended in opposite direction. So ibig sabihin, magkasalungat. Comparing with a parabola, parabola is only one opening, either upward or downward, but this hyperbola has 2 openings, upward and also downward, separately with each other. It is a misconception that each branch is parabola. So ito po yung pagkakamali ng mga estudyante na pag may nakita silang hyperbola, tinatawag naman nila parabola. So yun po ang misconception, ang mali. Kasi yung pagkakaiba ng dalawa, hyperbola, 2 openings. Ibig sabihin, dalawa po ang kanyang unbounded branches. Samantalang ang parabola ay isa lang, either upward or downward. This is not true. So this is the misconception between the parabola and the hyperbola. As parabolas and hyperbolas have very different features. Talagang magkaiba silang dalawa. An application of hyperbolas in basic location and navigation schemes are presented in an example and some exercises in the next lesson concerning with this hyperbola of the conic section. So, mga exercises and the application po ng hyperbola ay madidiscuss po natin sa susunod na araw. So, I have here 5 questions concerning with the hyperbolas of the conic sections. So, the first one is, why hyperbola is important? Bakit mahalaga ang hyperbola? Second, what I have learned in hyperbola. Ano ba ang aking matutunan sa hyperbola na yan? Third, what is hyperbola in real life? Ano po ba ang hyperbola sa real life situation? Kung saan natin magagamit o makikita ang hyperbola. The fourth one, where is hyperbola used? Saan ginagamit ang hyperbola? So, yung pangatlo kanina, saan sa real life? Paano gagamitin sa real life scenario or situation? So, the fourth one, saan ginagamit? And the fifth one, what makes hyperbola unique? Bakit kakaiba ang hyperbola compare sa parabola and other conic section? So, let's proceed by the first question. Isa-isahin po natin sila. So, the first question is, why hyperbola is important? So the answer to this question is this. Hyperbolas are important in astronomy, one of the branches of science, as they are the paths followed by the non-recurrent comets. Yan po yung dinadaanan ng mga comets. Okay, paths. Hindi naman natin nakikita. Invisible, ibig sabihin, hindi po nakikita ng ating naked eye. Ibig sabihin, may path talagang dinadaanan yung comets. They also play an important role in calculus because of remarkable properties of areas under the curve of y is equal to 1 multiplied by x, or y is equal to 1x. And to the connection of logarithmic and exponential functions. So, meron siyang, you can connect to the topic in higher math about logarithmic and the exponential function, this hyperbola, using the graph. The second one, what I have learned in hyperbola. So we learned that hyperbola looks like two arcs back to back with each other. So sabi ko nga kanina, ang hyperbola ay dalawang opening, upward and downward, back to back sila. Ibig sabihin kung nasa Cartesian plane tayo, so we have the x-axis and the y-axis. So yung unang opening ay nandun po pataas, upward, and yung pangalawa po ay yung pababa. Opposite po sila, back to back. Yun po ang hyperbola. Pag kinumpare naman po natin sa parabola, that is only one opening, either upward or a downward. We also learned that the standard equation of the hyperbola is equal to the quantity of x minus h raised to the second power minus the quantity of y minus k raised to the second power is equal to 1 for hyperbola that open sideways. So ito pong standard equation ng hyperbola ay may pagkakatulad po sa standard equation ng parabola, but the only difference between the two is the sign in between the first term and the second term. In parabola, that is addition sign, and in the hyperbola, that is a minus sign. So, the standard equation of hyperbola, we can discuss that later po sa mga susunod pong araw. Our hyperbola has a center. So, ibig sabihin, may origin po, that is 0 and 0. Our hyperbola also have two vertices. So, ibig sabihin, dalawang vertex. Bakit dalawang vertex? Kasi dalawa po ang kanyang unbounded arc. Ibig sabihin, upward ang downward. So, ang vertex po nila ay dalawa. Okay. So, the third question is, why is hyperbola in real life? So, saan po natin makikita ang hyperbola? Sa real life situation. So, this is the answer. A guitar. Yung gitara po. Okay. A guitar is an example of hyperbola as its side form hyperbola. Ayun. Yung side niya po ay nagpo-form ng hyperbola. Dulles Airport has a design of hyperbolic parabolic. Itong airport na to ay ang design na meron siyang hyperbola and also a parabolic arc. It has one cross-section of hyperbola and the other is a parabola. So, this is a combination of the two conic section, the hyperbola and the parabola. Things seen form a point on one side will be the same when seen from the same point on the other side. So, yun talaga yung makikita natin yung hyperbola on sa gitara. Yan. At dun sa airport na yon, sa Dulles Airport, a combination of the hyperbola and the parabola. Yun po. The fourth question is, where is hyperbola used? Saan po natin magagamit ang hyperbola? When two stone are thrown in a pool of water, pag ang dalawang bato po ay tinapon natin sa tubig, the concentric circles of ripples intersects in hyperbolas. This property of hyperbola is used in radar tracking station. An object is located by sending out sound waves from two-point sources. The concentric circles of these sound waves intersect the parabolas. So, yun po. Naghagis ka ng bato sa tubig, so, makakaroon po ng concentric circles intersect in hyperbolas. Makakaroon po sila ng dalawang unbounded arcs. So, pag naghagis kang ganun, so, kung yung bato dun sa lupa, sa tubig, so, makakaroon po ng dalawa pong arc. Okay, back to back with each other. So, that is po yung hyperbola na sinasabi natin. The fifth question is, what makes hyperbola unique? Bakit kakaiba ang hyperbola sa ibang conic section compared to the ellipses and the parabolas? All hyperbolas have an eccentricity value greater than 1. So, that is the one reason. All hyperbolas have two branches. Ang parabola kasi isa lang. So, yung hyperbola, two branches. Each with a vertex and a focal point. So, yung part po ng hyperbola, meron siyang vertices, two vertices, and a focal point. All hyperbolas have asymptotes, which are the straight lines that form an X that the hyperbola approaches but never does. So later, i-define po natin yung mga important terms dealing with the hyperbola. The first one is the vertex. The second one is the center. The third one is the focal point or the focus. And the fourth one is the asymptote. So mamaya po, i-discuss po natin isa-isa kung ano po ang ibig sabihin ng